thought I knew hardship when the cupboards were empty. But then came the draft letter, and the world turned upside down. I was barely 20 when they handed me a uniform that didn't fit and boots that blistered my feet. Mama pressed a Bible into my hands, and Daddy just said, "Remember who you are." Funny, that was the first time I saw him look small. I landed in Europe with a duffel bag, a photograph of June folded inside, and more fear than courage. The nights were louder than thunder, but it was the mornings after that changed me. The stillness after the shelling, when even the birds seemed too scared to sing. I saw things no one should, held a man's hand as he left this world, whispering his daughter's name. And somewhere in the mud and fire, I learned this: bravery ain't loud, it's quiet, it's doing the right thing when no one's there to see it. When the world went quiet, I promised myself if I made it home, I'd never take peace for granted. Not the porch swing, not June's laugh, not a morning cup of coffee where nothing's burning but the toast. I came back different, not broken, just aware. June met me at the station. She didn't say a word, just held my face in her hands like it was a prayer answered. We built a life on calm, on thank yous and garden soil. We named our son after the man who never made it back. Now I watch the news sometimes, and I see young folks rushing, scrolling, chasing everything but quiet. And I just think, if they could feel the silence after a war, the kind that holds your soul in one piece, they'd slow down too. Peace ain't the absence of trouble, it's the presence of grace. And I learned that when the world went quiet.
I was 20 when it happened. No money in my pocket, few calluses on my hands yet, still trying to figure out what kind of man I was gonna be. And then that night came, Lake Placid, USA versus the Soviets. Nobody gave us a chance, but America showed up anyway. I sat in my buddy's basement, pizza box on the floor, TV flickering like it had stage fright. And when that final buzzer hit, when those boys threw their gloves and skated into history, something in me clicked. If they can do that, I thought, maybe I've been aiming too low. It wasn't just a hockey game, it was proof. Proof that heart can outrun expectation.
that teamwork can rewrite the story, that believing can be louder than fear. I wasn't an athlete, but I started showing up like one to work, to my family, to my dreams. I started giving more than what people expected, because those boys taught me that good enough ain't good enough when you've got something to fight for. That game didn't change the world, it changed me. Taught me that grit beats power, that effort beats fear, and that when you've got a team that believes, you're already halfway there. Now I'm 65, don't skate, can't even bend that well anymore. But every February I rewatch that game just to remind myself, courage ain't flashy, it's just showing up when nobody thinks you'll win, and doing it anyway. That night in '80, a bunch of college kids beat a machine, and I learned that no matter who you are, you've got a shot if you've got the heart. They called it a miracle, I call it a lesson, 'cause that's the day the underdogs won. And I started believing that maybe I could too. I wasn't an athlete, but I started showing up like one to work. I was 27, elbow deep in a busted engine, when the fella on the radio paused and the room fell quiet. I wiped my hands, turned the dial up, and heard the president say, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Didn't sound like a speech, it sounded like a challenge to the world, and maybe to men like me. I'd never been to Berlin, heck, I hadn't been past Missouri, but I knew what a wall was. I built them in my mind, between me and dreams I thought I couldn't chase, between me and people I didn't understand, between who I was and who I was scared to become. But that day, something cracked. Not in Germany, in me. Because freedom ain't just crossing borders. Sometimes it's saying I can be more than what I've been. I went home that night, held my baby girl longer than usual, told my wife, maybe it's time we dream a little braver. I started saving for night school, started showing up with more fire. I spoke up at work, fixed things I'd let break, 'cause a wall falling somewhere far off made me start tearing down my own. That speech wasn't just history, it was a mirror, made me ask, what am I keeping locked behind fear? And what would happen if I let it out? Turns out, you don't need to be in Berlin to break down a wall. Years went by, the world kept spinning. The Berlin Wall did fall, but already started living free before the bricks hit the ground. My daughter grew up bold, my hands stayed dirty, but my heart got cleaner. And when folks asked what lit that fire in me, I just smile and say, I heard the wall crack in '87. Freedom ain't always loud. Sometimes it's just a whisper that says, you don't have to stay small. And every now and then, when I hear the world doubting what's possible, it was early, sun just coming over the pines, when my boy, grown now, with his own little one pulling at his jeans, stopped by the porch and asked me, Dad, why do you still fold that flag every Memorial Day? I looked down at the cloth in my hands, edges soft from the years, stars just a little faded. And I told him, because respect don't have an expiration date, because some things should always be done with care, even if no one else is watching. I said I never fought, but I watched a war shape everything around me. Watched good boys leave front porches with shoulders too proud for their age, and eyes that hadn't seen what they were about to. One of those boys never came back. His name was Tommy, lived 3 houses down. Used to throw rocks at stop signs and say he'd be famous one day. I still remember the day that flag was handed to his mama, folded just right, tucked into arms that had already lost too much. I didn't understand it then, but I do now. That flag ain't just fabric, it's a promise, it's weight, it's a thank you we'll never say enough. So I fold it slow every year, because it matters, 'cause this land we stand on didn't stay free by accident. And because I want your boy, my grandson, to grow up seeing what honor looks like when it's quiet. I don't fold it for politics, I fold it for people, for the ones who served and the ones who stayed strong waiting on them. Maybe for the boy I was the one who sat wide-eyed during wartime and learned early that sacrifice isn't always loud. So when you see me out here early on Memorial Day, hands steady, breathe slow. It's not habit, it's history. It's thanks. And it's me passing something down that's too big to explain, but too sacred to forget.
You see him at the diner, at the hardware store, sitting on front porches, or standing just a little too still when the anthem plays. They don't ask for attention, but you can tell they don't walk the same. They were boys once, tossing footballs in the yard, joking too loud in locker rooms, thinking forever was a promise. Then the call came, and they went to deserts, jungles, mountains, places most of us will never understand.
They came back older, even if the calendar said different. Came back with quiet eyes, calloused hearts, and stories they don't always tell.
Not because they're hiding, but because some things are too heavy for words. They laugh softer now, hold their kids longer, scan every room without thinking. They flinch when the fireworks pop, but they'll still light them for freedom's sake. They may not talk about it, but they carry it like a flag folded under the ribs. This is for the men who made it home but didn't come back the same. For the ones who gave what we'll never understand, just so we could keep what we so often take for granted. They walk slower now, but every step is a lesson in courage.
Some carry steel in their spine, some carry memories in their hands, some fight battles no one sees in grocery aisles and sleepless nights.
But still, they wake up, they go on, they keep giving, because that's who they are. So if you see one, an old soldier, a quiet vet, a steady man with stormy eyes, don't just thank him, respect him, honor the space he holds, and know that freedom stands because he did.
They don't walk the same.
I grew up where the road just stopped, right past the big oak tree, the one with the swing that creaked louder than it moved. Mama said, that's where peace lives. And I guess she was right. We didn't have much, but we had biscuits that browned just right. Daddy's laugh that rumbled like summer thunder, and time that moved slow enough you could feel it breathing. There was this porch swing, a dog named Sue that never barked unless it mattered, and people, real people, the kind that waved whether they knew your name or not. And you know that porch light, it still burns in my memory. It's more than a bulb, it's a feeling, it's safety, it's your home now. Even when I'm 100 miles away, I can still see it glowing. There was a man down the lane, used to whistle a tune like he owned the morning. He didn't rush, no one did, 'cause back then, slow wasn't lazy, it was respectful. It meant you noticed life while it was still happening. I met love on a gravel path. She had flowers in her hands and dirt on her jeans. Said money's loud, but love is quiet. We danced barefoot near the hay bales and carved our initials into the barn like fools who thought time would never catch us. Yeah, that porch light still flickers behind my eyelids some nights. It's a steady kind of light, the kind that says you're doing okay, even when you feel lost. Not all roots are meant to be left behind. Some grow with you, even in cities, even in chaos. That small town stillness, it walks beside me, and every now and then I sit still, I listen, and I go back to the porch, back to peace. Because the porch light stays on, even when no one's home. The first time I saw my daddy cry wasn't when someone died. It was when the bank came for the land. I was 7, too young to understand foreclosure, old enough to feel the silence it left behind. We lived through the Great Depression, when money meant less than your word, and your word had to carry you like boots through thick mud. We ate biscuits without gravy some nights, and when the radio stopped working, Daddy said, silence ain't empty, son, sometimes it's ours. I remember my said it gave her something to do with her hands, while her heart figured out how to stay hopeful. You learn a lot when your toys are just rocks and twine. You learn that kindness don't cost a dime. You learn that when neighbors lose everything, you don't bring them a speech, you bring them soup, and you sit with them quiet until the weight feels shared. Hard times, they don't just break you, they reveal you. And sometimes the folks with the least are the first to give you half of what they've got. That's when I learned dignity ain't in what you have, it's in how you hold your head when the world forgets your name. Daddy found work laying track in a town 2 states over. Sent home $3 and a letter every week. Said he missed the smell of cornbread and mama's hands in his hair. That letter, we passed it around like scripture. Now I live in a world with screens and speed and noise, where folks panic if their coffee's cold. But I've never forgotten the dust. I was 9 years old the night America touched the moon. We didn't have air conditioning, just a screen door that squeaked, and a living room full of people leaning forward like they could pull that moment closer. Daddy adjusted the antenna like it mattered. Mama clutched her apron like it was church. And I sat on the floor, cross-legged, heart pounding, like it was my own boot in that moon dust. When Neil said those words, one small step, I didn't fully understand the science, but I understood the feeling. Hope, real, bone deep, goosebump hope. The whole country was holding its breath that night. Even the stars felt quieter. And I remember thinking, if we can do that, maybe we can do anything. That moment didn't just change history, it changed me. After that, I asked more questions, built rockets out of soda bottles, started caring about numbers, about the sky, about trying even when something felt too big. And as I grew up, whether it was building a fence, raising a kid, or fixing something busted, that little boy in me whispered, you can do it. We've been to the moon. That night taught me that no dream is too high, no problem too wide, no story too small. You don't have
I'm 65, still look up at that moon sometimes. Not to wonder what's up there, but to remember what's in here. I tell my grandkids, you don't need rockets to make a leap. Sometimes it's showing up, doing the hard thing, or loving someone well. That's moonwalking too. The moon is still up there, so is the wonder. And every time life feels heavy, I close my eyes and go back to that summer night when the stream flickered, the porch fan hummed, and a little barefoot boy in America learned what was possible. That's the thing about great days.
I was just a boy when the war started filling our house, not with soldiers, but with sound radio reports, letters read in whispers, or black and white TV that flickered late into the night. I was 10 when Tommy, my neighbor, got drafted. 17, barely knew how to shave. I remember his mama crying on the porch, trying to smile through it, like it was just a long trip. He left in his graduation suit, came back in a jacket 2 sizes too big, and eyes that didn't land on anything for long. I didn't understand war, but I understood quiet, the kind that sits at the dinner table when someone you love is missing. I understood what it meant when my daddy stood for the anthem with a hand that trembled just a little. At school we drew peace signs in the margins of our notebooks, watched teachers blink too fast when the news came on. We learned to say things like conflict and protest before we even knew what either one cost. But deep down we knew, because the boys we looked up to weren't on the playground anymore. That war didn't take me, but it raised me, taught me to listen when someone's quiet, taught me to pray even if I didn't know what to say, taught me that being tough ain't about fists or flags, it's about showing up with kindness when the world forgets how. I grew up steady, learned how to fix engines and people's fences. I never fought overseas, but I fought to live like peace mattered, like people mattered. And now, at 65, I still hear those newscasts in my mind, not with fear, but with respect. The war I watched taught me what silence means,
taught me how much a hug can weigh, how strong a soft answer can be, how loud and empty. You don't forget a moment like that. You just fold it up, tuck it somewhere behind your ribs, and carry it. I was 30, somewhere in the desert, sweating through my uniform, praying I'd done enough to see my kids again. We were on patrol, dust thick enough to choke a sunrise, and then it happened. A flash, a sound, and silence. I hit the ground so hard I forgot who I was, and for a breath, just one, I thought this might be it. I saw faces, not of enemies, but of my daughter, of my wife, of the things I hadn't said yet. And I remember whispering, Lord, not yet. Turns out it wasn't the end. It was just close enough to make me listen. After that day, I started living different. I said what needed saying, hugged with both arms, didn't save the good whiskey for someday. When you look death in the eye, it doesn't scare you, it strips you, it shows you what matters and what never did. And if you're lucky, you walk away lighter, but heavier with meaning. I came home, people asked me, what changed you? I didn't talk about fire or noise. I talked about a moment, a quiet one, where the world paused just long enough for me to see what I'd almost lost. I don't live scared, I live aware. I look at a leaf turning in the wind and see a gift. I sit longer at dinner, I listen harder when someone talks. 'Cause when you've been 1 second from never again, every second after feels like mercy. I don't know why I got to walk away that day, but I do know this: I didn't come back just alive, I came back awake. They didn't wear the uniform, didn't cross enemy lines, but they fought every single day. In kitchens, nurseries, front porches, and quiet nights where no one heard them cry. They were the ones who stayed and held the line. She waved him off with a brave smile and eyes that didn't match it. kept her voice steady as the bus rolled out of town, and whispered a prayer through the windshield fog. The kids asked, "When's Daddy coming back?" She said, "Soon, baby." Even when she didn't know. She paid the bills, fixed the sink, made birthdays feel like home. With a photo at the table and laughter she stitched together. She stood tall at parent-teacher nights, sat alone in pews on Sundays, and answered every letter with hope woven between the lines.
She didn't ask for medals, didn't call herself brave, but every morning she laced up her purpose like boots on sacred ground. She was the light left on, the voice in the wind, the reason he made it home, and still knew what love looked like.
This is for the women who stayed strong in the silence, who carried families, fears and faith, with nothing but grit and grace. They don't march in parades, but they are why the flag still waves. They held the line while the world looked the other way. There was a war over there, but there was a battle here too. For normalcy, for peace, for bedtime routines without breaking